His dad's body wasn't even cold in the CEO chair when Dylan strutted into the office wearing aviators indoors, holding a cold brew the size of a newborn. He winked at me like I was the receptionist, not the woman who literally made sure 2,000 employees didn't riot on payday. New era, he said, arms wide, like Moses parting the Red Sea of mediocrity. Gonna modernize the entire back end. I was mid-bite of my sad little tuna wrap, one with the too wet lettuce, and something about his tone made the mayo turn to bile in my throat. He tapped the top of my monitor like it was a jukebox. Payroll's ancient, right? Pretty sure I saw some hieroglyphics in the code comments. I didn't say a word, just stared at him, long enough to make him uncomfortable. Long enough for him to smirk, adjust his belt like he'd just peed excellence, and saunter off toward HR. Here's the thing. 3 days before that, I got a Slack notification at 11:17 p.m. from a name I didn't recognize. D-Man CEO vibes, no message, just a file upload. Payroll rebuild DJCBL. I stared at it for maybe 6 seconds, then closed my laptop and poured a drink. Not because I didn't understand it, because I did. Because that file meant something was coming. Something big, something so stupid, could only be orchestrated by a man whose coding skills came from watching YouTube tutorials at 1.5x speed. Turns out the DJ in the file name stood for Dylan Jr. Turns out, he bragged to the entire engineering floor the next day that he'd finally optimized that dinosaur COBOL garbage, his words, while sipping La Croix and wearing a Let's Get Fiscal hoodie. And here's where it gets gross. People clapped. Literal applause. Stood there like Tony Stark with a syntax error, arms out, basking in the glow of inherited power. My fingers itched. My jaw locked. I started counting backwards from 10 like my therapist taught me. But I knew he'd done it. He deployed something, probably to staging. Maybe to prod, definitely without a pull request. Then Friday hit. 3 p.m. Quiet hum in the office, half the team already mentally at happy hour. I got an email from Brenda in Ops. Subject line, up my paycheck. By 4:30, there were 39 more. Some were missing overtime. Some had deductions that looked like ransom notes. One poor guy, Carlos from facilities, was paid $0.37 and a Chili's gift card. I pulled the logs, checked the timestamps. My screen started to sweat. Dylan had rewritten a chunk of payroll logic using not COBOL, not even Python. Looked like JavaScript mangled through Google Translate and duct-taped back together. And he committed it directly into the live environment. That night, I sat in the parking garage in my Toyota Corolla, engine off, heat on low, staring at the ceiling. I thought about calling legal. I thought about quitting. I thought about how I had 15 years of knowledge in my head that no one respected because it didn't come with a TED talk or a subscription to the hustle. Then I remembered something. An old training binder, tucked behind the boiler room server, under a box labeled Do Not Touch 2003 Migration. A COBOL compiler CD, my old notebook, pages of notes in my handwriting from when I used to fix bugs while nursing my kid in the break room. I took a deep breath. If Junior wanted COBOL, I'd give him COBOL. But not the kind he could read, not the kind he could modernize. Was about to bury his ego in every semicolon he didn't understand. And the best part? I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it because someone had to finally teach that boy how a system crash really feels. Monday morning, I wore lipstick, not the soft rosewood shimmer I'd usually swipe on in the car mirror. No, blood red, war paint. The kind that says, I will watch your empire crumble while sipping vending machine coffee and not flinch. Lynn waltzed in 20 minutes late, carrying an urgent box of branded stress balls he insisted we start mailing with pay stubs to humanize the process. His face dropped the second he saw me already at my desk, clacking away. Early bird gets the bugs, huh? He said. Already squashed, I replied without looking up. You deployed to production, by the way. He blinked. Twice. Oh, yeah, that was intentional. It's like DevOps why now. I smiled, sure. He didn't know, couldn't even fathom, is that I'd spent all Sunday rebuilding the entire payroll logic in COBOL. Pure COBOL. The old kind. The kind with comment headers like remember to sacrifice a goat and conditionals that looked like ritual spells. I kept it modular, clean, precise, and absolutely incomprehensible to anyone born after 1995. Then I did the one thing Dylan would never expect. I scheduled a shadow job, not a deployment, not a rollback, just a silent, invisible batch run. It mirrored payroll, corrected the errors he made, flagged them internally, and quietly logged every deviation with full tracebacks, all wrapped in a naming convention that only made sense if you knew the punch card system from back in the mainframe days. It was like hiding a Shakespeare play in a C++ class, technically visible, totally unreadable. By noon, the break room was buzzing, people whispering about pay discrepancies, about the email from finance that said temporary glitch, about the emergency town hall Dylan scheduled just to connect with the team. I went, sat front row, crossed my legs, smiled. Dylan stood up front, palms out like he was healing the sick. Hey fam. So like we've had a minor hiccup in payroll processing. But rest assured, our systems are being upgraded. You're witnessing the future in real time. Someone in the back coughed the word bullshit. He chuckled. I mean, who here still writes in COBOL anyway? My hand shot up. He froze. A flicker of fear behind his influencer grin. I do, I said, calm, firm. In fact, I rewrote the entire payroll logic last night in COBOL. It's running right now. Parallel, clean, error-free. The room went dead quiet. Dylan tried to laugh it off. I mean, okay, but can anyone actually read that stuff anymore? I tilted my head, and his mouth opened. Nothing came out, so I stood up, walked slowly to the front, plugged my laptop into the projector without asking, clicked open the COBOL batch log. It was beautiful. Rows and rows of line-by-line logic, neatly annotated, comparing his deployment against mine. At the bottom, a bar chart, red for errors, blue for corrected, and one yellow line labeled CEO overrides. His line, I didn't say a word. Just clicked play on a short demo script I'd built. A fake payroll run that displayed his code reversing tax deductions and rounding down bonuses to the nearest dollar. He squinted at the screen, then said, dead serious, wait, that's not supposed to be there. Exactly. I shut the laptop, looked him straight in the eye. You said you could code in COBOL, I said, so I gave you something to read. He turned pale. But this wasn't the end. Not yet, because buried in that batch job was something he hadn't seen. A signature. Mine. And a clause in our compliance policy that triggered mandatory audit review anytime major financial software was altered without peer approval. Guess what he skipped? Guess who gets the first alert? Compliance. And guess who runs compliance now? Me. He tried to fire me that afternoon. Didn't even wait for the compliance flags to start blinking. Just stormed into my cubicle like a toddler on too much Red Bull and authority. You're toxic to the modernization process, he snapped, waving a folded piece of paper like it was a golden ticket. I'm restructuring the team, effective immediately. I looked up from my keyboard, where I was reviewing the audit log timestamp that showed Dylan committing code changes under a VPN spoof, masked as a dev who'd quit in 2021. Bold move. Dumb, too. Don't have that authority, I said flat. COO still has final approval on terminations in payroll operations. He blinked. Since when? Since your dad's policy change in 2018. Page 14. Handbook. You signed it. His face twitched. You could almost hear the wheels squealing in his head, brakes locking on a train he didn't even realize was moving. I watched him struggle between bluff and breakdown. He crumpled the paper like it offended him and threw it into my trash can. Missed. You think you're better than me because you know some crusty boomer language. No, I said, standing up. I know I am because I never crashed payroll, and I don't lie to compliance. That's when he lost it, slammed his fist on my desk. The plastic frog I kept next to my monitor, gift from my kid when I got my certification, bounced once, then tipped over. You think you're safe? He spat. Get your access pulled. I'll lock you out. No one will care. You're replaceable. He stormed off before I could reply, which was smart, because I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to show him. By 6 p.m., IT had already looped me in. They'd received a priority request to revoke my permissions and suspend my machine. But our lead admin, Jake, was an old friend. The kind who remembered birthdays, kind I helped move when his girlfriend kicked him out and took the dog. Jake forwarded the email Dylan sent. Subject line, Legacy Parasite Access Termination. I stared at it, read it twice, then opened my personal folder. Inside, a tiny program I'd kept for just this kind of emergency. A failsafe, not malware, nothing illegal, just a silent watchdog. It ran invisibly, triggered by access revocation. And the moment my permissions changed, would clone the entire payroll repo, snapshot the audit logs, and send them to a secure internal compliance channel. One that automatically queued a review meeting with HR, legal, and the CTO. Call it insurance, call it spite, call it knowing your enemy. But here's the part I didn't expect. Jake texted me, Yo, you're not gonna believe this. Dylan tried to backdate a compliance signature. Literally forged your name. On a rollback memo. Stared at the message. My palms went cold, not because I was scared, because I realized something. This wasn't about payroll. This wasn't about COBOL. This was about power. About erasing the one person who could read what he'd done, who had receipts, who remembered the buried bones of the system down to the line numbers and forgotten variables. I sat back. Let it settle in. If he wanted war, I'd give him war. But not loud, not dramatic. Silent, surgical, fatal. Because Dylan had just declared war in a language he couldn't read. And unfortunately for him, I was fluent. By Tuesday morning, the air in the office felt different, tight, like someone had vacuum-sealed tension into the recycled HVAC. Dylan wasn't at his standing desk/command center, and nobody had seen him swipe in. Meanwhile, I sipped my gas station coffee and watched the first compliance alert hit legal's inbox. It worked. Little watchdog script had triggered perfectly, flagging the forged signature, the unauthorized production changes, and Dylan's idiotic attempt to rename pay grade tier matrix to salary sauce. But I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Instead, I walked into the copy room and pulled the blinds. Opened my laptop. Clicked into the shadow repo, my private clone of the payroll system, the one Dylan didn't even know existed. The system that had been running silently, flawlessly, right beside his dumpster fire of a codebase. I opened the chat window to someone I hadn't messaged in 5 years. Maggie, Deputy GC, the last time we talked, it was about frozen stock options and whether a layoff constituted constructive dismissal. She had a mind like a buzzsaw and a smile like a poker face. Me, hey, you got 10 mins, Maggie. Are you the one sending the COBOL ghosts through compliance? Me, maybe. Maggie, come to legal. Bring your receipts. When I stepped into the legal office, Maggie was already setting up a screen share. She didn't even offer a chair. Just pointed, sit, show me, so I did. I walked her through everything. The logs, the commits, the metadata on the forged signature, timestamped 4 hours after I left the building, from Dylan's IP address. The false documentation he created naming me as technical co-signer. Payroll script that reallocated department bonuses into a mysterious holding fund tagged innovation bucket, which somehow routed through a Delaware shell LLC Dylan had personally approved. Maggie's face didn't move once. Not even when I told her Dylan had called me a legacy parasite. Finally, she leaned back. Okay, that's enough. I raised an eyebrow. You've seen worse? Oh no, she said, opening her notebook. I've just seen this before. What do you mean? Maggie flipped the page and turned it to me. At the top, Whistleblower Protocol Executive Targets, my name was already written at the bottom. Dated last Friday. After the forged memo came through, she said, we checked metadata. Then your watchdog script dropped the rest. We've been building a file. My mouth went dry. You set me up? No, she said calmly. He did. We just opened the window and waited for the body to fall through. I stared at her, million things clicking into place. You knew he was going to screw up. Please, she said, standing. The man thinks COBOL is an NFT. She handed me a folder. Inside, full immunity documentation. Internal whistleblower protections. A formal request to testify in front of the board. And cherry on top, an invitation to consult on the payroll modernization project as acting systems lead. I looked up at her. He's going to come after me. Maggie smiled. Already did? And you turned it into an audit trail with a kill switch. But just as I reached for the pen, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, blocked ID. I stepped out into the hallway to answer. Hello, the voice on the other end was gravel soaked in bourbon. You think this is over? Silence. I don't know who you are, I said, cold. But I suggest you check your audit logs. Check yours, he replied. Then the line went dead. I froze, because I recognized that voice. It wasn't Dylan. It was his father. The last time I'd heard Victor Jennings' voice, it was in a corporate town hall where he described layoffs as a necessary purification ritual. Now it slithered through my phone like cold oil. I stared at the call log. Blocked, of course. Victor Jennings wasn't just Dylan's father. He was the founder, the architect of the entire company. And although he'd retired after his insider trading whispers got a little too loud, everyone knew he still pulled strings. The kind of strings that wrapped around necks. I walked back into legal slower this time, heart pounding just hard enough to muffle logic. Maggie was on her laptop, typing with surgical fury. Something wrong? She asked, not looking up. Victor called me. Now she looked up. Her fingers stopped. Repeat that, he said. I swallowed. Check your audit logs. Then he hung up. Maggie's eyes darkened. She closed her laptop with a snap. He's not supposed to be anywhere near internal ops. His access was revoked a year ago. Maybe not his access, I said. That's when Maggie muttered something that sounded suspiciously like motherfucker and pulled up the admin login matrix on the projector screen. It was encrypted 6 ways to Sunday, but when she dropped in her key, I saw it, a ghost session. Logged in under an old sysadmin ID. IP traced to a private VPN node routed through Ohio. Bingo. He's backdooring through old infrastructure, she muttered. We warned them not to keep those legacy ports open legacy. That word again. The thing about legacy systems is, people don't respect them until the floor falls out. And Victor, he built his castle on that floor, which meant he knew the holes. But so did I. Open port 8082, I said suddenly. Maggie squinted. That's deprecated. No, I said. That's where the original COBOL mirror was routed. Before Dylan ever touched a line, she typed fast, faster. Her screen filled with gibberish. Then stopped. Oh my God, there it was. A full duplicate of the old payroll system, my system, still active, still mirroring every transaction, every override. Except there was one difference. Someone had added a branch script. A script that silently siphoned off 0.5% of all bonuses from upper management, redirected to a private crypto wallet. It had Victor's fingerprints all over it. I looked at Maggie. She looked at me, and then we heard it. Boom, a shout outside, raised voices, the sound of a printer being knocked over. We both rushed out and saw Dylan in the hallway, red-faced and sweating, yelling at Jake from IT. You said it was clean, he shouted, shoving a laptop into Jake's chest. You said there was no trace. Jake looked terrified. I didn't know about the legacy port, Victor said. He said you signed off. I stepped forward. Loudly. Victor signed off. Dylan's head whipped toward me. He hissed, you set me up. No, I said, stepping closer. He set you up. I just turned the lights on. He threw the laptop. Literally hurled it down the hallway. It bounced twice and cracked near accounting. This isn't over, he screamed, voice cracking, suit jacket slipping off his shoulder like a child playing dress-up in his father's armor. No, I said quietly, turning to Maggie. But it's about to be, because now we had everything. Code, proof of fraud. A legacy script signed in Victor's old cipher, and one final wild card. The COBOL mirror, it wasn't just logging payroll. It was logging every message routed through internal comms, including the encrypted Slack channel Victor had used to talk to Dylan. The one he thought no one remembered, but I remembered, because I built it. The COBOL mirror had a flaw, on purpose. Design choice I made a decade ago, when Victor himself demanded a back-channel payroll chat system, hidden beneath the standard compliance net. He called it a tool for agile discussions. I called it a trapdoor. Back then, I was younger, meeker, grateful to be invited to the table, even if I was the one fetching the coffee while writing the architecture. But I still knew better than to trust a man who called bonuses performance narcotics. I embedded a ghost listener in the chat function. Harmless at the time. Just logged messages to a cold backup drive in the system's root, untouched for years, forgotten, until now. Back in legal, Maggie and I unzipped the archive file. It was bigger than I expected. 9 years of encrypted messages between Victor, Dylan, and 3 other execs, 2 of whom were no longer with the company. One retired to spend more time with family. The other, a sudden boating accident. Body recovered. Maggie read silently for 10 minutes, then, without a word, picked up the phone and dialed internal security. Locked down Dylan's account. Now. And I want 2-factor reinstated on all C-suite access. Yes, even Victor's ghost logins. Use the override key. Tell the board it's code orange. She hung up, looked at me. You just handed me a wireframe for a RICO case. I blinked. That wasn't the plan. Doesn't matter. The plans changed. At the end of the day, the board was in an emergency session. The old money types flew in via private jet, furious and rattled. Dylan was nowhere to be found. Security had checked his penthouse empty. Passport gone. Last ping from his phone was a burner Uber to a private airstrip upstate. Victor showed up, not in person, on screen. A Zoom call that froze the room. He looked older now, more reptilian than I remembered. Pale. Sharp. His voice, however, was unchanged, smooth as spoiled cream. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, this witch hunt has gone far enough. I watched the board twitch. He smiled. I built this company. I built its systems. That woman, he practically spat the word, is a bitter technician with a grudge against progress. I stood, calm, focused. You built the company, I said. I built the system. And I built it to survive men like you. He blinked. Once, you're bluffing, so I shared my screen. Message archive opened. Text after text. Line after line. Victor Jennings, divert 1.5% from C-level bonuses Q4. Route through Shell 3. Victor Jennings, tell the kid to keep the COBOL distraction alive. No one audits COBOL. Victor Jennings, if she digs, discredit her. We'll call her unstable. Plant HR complaints. The room went silent. One board member leaned forward, voice trembling. Mr. Jennings, did you forge payroll documents? Victor didn't answer. I clicked another folder. This one was worse. Scanned PDFs, financial reallocations, signature overlays. The metadata revealed timestamps that overlapped with Dylan's infamous weekend code sprint, all digitally marked with Victor's admin signature. Finally, I opened a terminal window. Typed in a single command, /mirror/terminate with audit full export, the COBOL system complied, spitting out one last act of defiance, a compressed file of everything. Every lie, every forged memo, every cover-up, automatically copied to legal, compliance, and federal regulators. Maggie leaned over, whispered, "They'll bury him for this." I looked at the screen. Victor's face was frozen mid-blink. Pale, furious, he knew it was over. And yet, something still burned in my chest. Because even as his empire crumbled, even as security locked down the building and legal spun up criminal referrals, Victor said one last thing. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You think you've won? You ran the system. I am the system." Then the feed cut. And for the first time in 10 years, I felt afraid. They say justice is quiet. That's a lie. Real justice groans like steel under pressure, crackles through office intercoms, and slams down in the form of federal subpoenas, stamped with government seals and ugly courier handwriting. It doesn't whisper. It echoes. Thursday morning, our office lobby looked like an episode of Dateline, Finance Edition. 2 plainclothes agents were already in the executive suite. Legal said nothing. Maggie just nodded at me from behind a glass wall as they confiscated Dylan's laptop and one of Victor's old hard drives, still wrapped in a 2007 post-it that said "Do not touch VJ only." The board suspended all operations relating to innovation bucket initiatives. My team, sidelined for months, was reinstated. I was offered acting interim tech ops oversight, which is just boardroom speak for please keep the company from spontaneously combusting. But I hadn't accepted. Not yet, because I wasn't done. Not with Victor, not with the part of me that still lay awake at night, wondering if he was bluffing when he said "I am the system." Because here's the thing, he wasn't bluffing. That morning my phone buzzed, no number again. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Victor's voice was different this time. Not cold, not angry. Calm, very clever, he said. I didn't respond. "You know they'll cut you out eventually, right? Once they're clean. They'll thank you, reward you, then shuffle you back into silence." Out the door, I waited. He went on. "You've got the mind. But you don't understand power. Not yet. You think burning me down makes you safe, makes you special." I almost laughed. "You're calling me to gloat." "No," he said, "to offer you something." That stopped me. "I'm listening. You've seen how deep the architecture goes. The legacy ports, the shadow channels, there's more. Whole layers they never documented. I built those with people far smarter than Dylan. I built escape hatches into the entire ecosystem. I can show you." I stared out the window. Traffic moved like syrup below, dull and slow and oblivious. "You're offering me a blueprint to the company's nervous system?" "I'm offering you survival," he said. "You can become a node, like I did, not a player, the player. But if you walk away now, thinking you won, you'll just be next. Someone hungrier will come, maybe someone smarter, and you won't see them coming." He paused. "Don't have to say yes now. Just don't say no yet." Then he hung up. I sat frozen for a long minute, then opened a secure shell on my laptop, logged into the mirror system one final time. I didn't delete anything, didn't shut it down. Instead, I renamed the primary folder. From /mirror/system/legacy to /mirror/system/Victor lied, and I started digging. Because I needed to know. Not if Victor still had power, how much of it he buried inside me. Friday, 3:47 a.m. The office was dark, empty. That sterile, haunted silence you only hear when the building's asleep but the systems aren't. I was still there, hoodie on, shoes off, sitting cross-legged on the carpet with 3 monitors glowing like cold moons. Coffee gone cold. Half a protein bar turning to cardboard in my mouth. My fingers flew. The Victor archive wasn't just logs. It was architecture. Blueprints, root-level exploits, diagrams scrawled in text files like digital voodoo, instructions for rerouting audit trails, burying transactional histories, even ghosting system flags using nothing but timestamp manipulation and a dead DNS alias. He hadn't just built the company. He'd built an organism, one that learned to conceal its cancer, one that could erase its own crime scene before anyone knew it bled. And the worst part, parts of it had my code in it, tweaked, twisted. The modules I wrote when I was young and eager to prove myself, recompiled into something feral and self-masking. That's when it hit me. Victor never used people, he absorbed them. I'd given him tools without realizing it, made myself part of the monster. And now I was the only one who could kill it. I pulled up the final node, a kill switch buried under 4 layers of dummy logic. It was codenamed Cobalt Cure. I remembered naming it. Back then, it was just a thought experiment, a just-in-case backdoor. No one ever expected to use it, but it was still there, dormant, ready. I hovered over the key. Triggering it would force a system-wide rollback, flatten all Victor-era backend modules, erase dormant exploits, cut off every shadow process he left behind. But it would also vaporize my own mirror, my logs, my script, my proof. I'd win, but no one would see how. No praise, no promotion, no vindication. Just a clean system and silence. I stared at the blinking cursor, then clicked. The screen flickered, once, twice, then turned black. When it came back on, every legacy process was gone, every fake node, every ghost function Victor had touched. Gone, erased like smoke from glass. The system was clean, but I wasn't. Saturday morning, I submitted my resignation. Not loud, no press, just a PDF with 3 sentences and my badge left on Maggie's desk in a manila envelope. I walked out into the sun, breathing air that didn't taste like server dust and old lies. Victor didn't call again. Dylan never came back. The company restructured. They hired some shiny-faced CTO with a LinkedIn grin and a podcast. He gave a TEDx talk on resilience through modernization. Got applause, got quoted, got a book deal. But I rebuilt myself in silence. Now I freelance, contract only, no titles, no ladders, just clean code and coffee that doesn't come from a breakroom Keurig. Sometimes I still get calls, rumors, whispers of systems glitching in ways no one can explain. And sometimes I check the logs, not because I'm afraid Victor's still out there, but because part of me always will be, because legacy code never really dies. It just waits. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.